That's Chris Watts' mistress, Nichol Kessinger, blowing him kisses and professing her love for him.
I am having a wonderful time. You mean a lot to me, and I'm glad that you're having a blast. I am so out of breath.
The video, recorded just weeks before Watts murdered his wife and 2 daughters, was uncovered. Kyle Peltz is the show's producer.
There's photos and videos of them on a secret trip to the Great Sand Dunes while Shanann and Chris's 2 baby girls were away on vacation.
There you go, baby.
That's Watts you hear behind the camera.
You're so damn sexy.
HLN also obtained voicemail messages Nichol Kessinger left for Watts. She giggles like a schoolgirl.
Hi. It's me. I miss your face. I was just calling to say hi.
Watts also took these provocative photos of his 30-year-old co-worker. He stored them in a hidden folder on his smartphone.
He hides this on an app called Secret Calculator. It looks and functions like a regular calculator, but when you enter 4 digits, it's a secret vault. It opens up and it reveals hidden photos and videos.
Watts claims he came clean about the affair to his pregnant wife Shanann the night he killed her and their daughters. He buried Shanann in a shallow grave and dumped his girls in silos of crude oil. The mistress told cops she had no idea he was planning to murder his family.
This shocked me just as much as I think it shocked the rest of the world.
Watts is serving.
The morning air was heavy with silence as police searched the empty halls of the Watts home. The rooms looked untouched, beds made, toys neatly stacked, breakfast dishes still on the counter. But the stillness wasn't peace. It was the aftermath of something monstrous. What began as a missing person report was about to expose one of the darkest crimes in American suburbia. At the center was a husband whose calm interviews would soon become infamous, and a woman whose name would ignite endless controversy. Her name was Nichol Kessinger. In the days following Chris Watts' arrest, rumors swirled like wildfire. Some called her a victim of deceit. Others, an accomplice hiding behind innocence. Then came the chilling claim whispered through prison walls and online message boards alike, "Nichol helped me do it." Whether true or not, the suggestion struck a chord that refused to fade. How could a man commit such an unthinkable act alone? And what role, if any, did the woman he loved in secret play in the destruction of an entire family? Behind every horrific crime lies a moment of choice. A breath between thought and action. For Chris Watts, that moment came when he believed he had found freedom in someone else. For Nichol, it was when she looked into the camera and said she had no idea what he was capable of. But the timelines, the deleted searches, the late-night calls, they painted a picture far more complicated than innocence or guilt. This is Sinister Tales, and tonight we reopen a case that refuses to die. A case where love, lies, and murder collide, and where the truth might be darker than the confession itself. Before we begin, remember to like, share, and subscribe. Your support helps us uncover the stories the world tried to forget. Before the world knew their names, they were just 2 people whose lives happened to collide at the wrong time. Chris Watts was a quiet, seemingly devoted family man from Frederick, Colorado. A husband, a father, and soon-to-be father again. His life looked peaceful from the outside, a comfortable suburban home, 2 little girls who adored him, and a wife who documented their happiness online. But inside, the mask was slipping. Beneath his calm exterior was a man restless, detached, and secretly searching for something to fill the growing void within him. Nichol Kessinger was intelligent, ambitious, and independent. She worked in environmental safety at Anadarko Petroleum, the same company where Chris was employed. Co-workers described her as bright and reserved, someone who kept her private life private. But in June 2018, a spark was lit, one that would ignite the unraveling of everything Chris claimed to love. Their connection began innocently, casual conversations, shared work breaks, fleeting glances. Soon, those glances became texts, then late-night calls, then hotel rooms and promises of a new life together. Shanann Watts, meanwhile, had no idea. She was pregnant with their 3rd child and still fighting for her marriage. She texted friends about her worries, about how distant Chris had become. While she was building a future, he was erasing one. And Nichol? She was asking about baby names, about moving forward once the divorce was final, a divorce that never truly existed outside of Chris's lies. It's here, in this triangle of love, deception, and delusion, that the tragedy found its roots. The connection between Chris and Nichole became the fuel for the crime that followed. Some say it was obsession. Others, manipulation. But one truth remains: once they met, the countdown to death had already begun. You're watching Sinister Tales. Before we continue, like, share, and subscribe, because the deeper this story goes, the darker it gets. By July 2018, the cracks in the facade were spreading fast. Chris Watts, once the quiet husband who seemed content with family life, was changing in ways no one around him could fully explain. He began losing weight, dressing differently, and working late more often. He was spending hours at the gym, constantly checking his phone, and withdrawing from his wife and children. Shannon, who was 5 months pregnant, sensed something was terribly wrong. She wrote messages filled with love and confusion, trying to reach a man who was emotionally gone. What she didn't know was that Chris wasn't working late, he was spending those nights with Nichol Kessinger. Nichole had fallen hard. She believed she was with a man trapped in an unhappy marriage, a man who wanted out. Chris told her everything she wanted to hear, that the marriage was over, that he was only staying for the children, that he was planning a new life, one with her. She searched online for wedding dresses, vacation destinations, even how to prepare for a new relationship with kids. But behind the romantic fantasies, darker questions began to appear. On her phone, she looked up phrases like, "Can people start new lives?" and "How long after someone disappears are they declared dead?" These searches would later become the foundation for endless speculation. Was Nichole a curious woman caught in a nightmare, or was she preparing for one? Investigators later said her behavior was inconsistent, her timeline unclear. She deleted texts, cleared browser histories, and avoided some calls from police. Whether out of guilt or fear, her silence created more questions than answers. By the time Shannon left for her final business trip in August, the red flags had turned into sirens. Chris was cold, distant, and detached. He wasn't just planning a separation. He was planning something irreversible. This is Sinister Tales. If you believe the truth always finds its way to the surface, like, share, and subscribe, because what comes next will change everything. The night of August 13, 2018, unfolded with the quiet horror of inevitability. Shannon Watts returned home from a business trip in the early hours of the morning. The porch light flickered as she walked toward the front door, unaware that inside, her husband was already awake, and her life was nearly over. The security camera caught her last steps, a moment that would later become the haunting centerpiece of one of America's darkest true crime cases. What happened next remains one of the most disturbing acts of domestic violence ever recorded. In the stillness of their bedroom, Chris Watts ended the life of his pregnant wife. As she fought for breath, her unborn son, Nico, died with her. The house fell silent. Then came the sound of small footsteps. Bella and Celeste, their daughters, woke to find confusion and fear replacing the innocence of sleep. Chris told them their mother was sick. He wrapped Shannon's body in a sheet and loaded her into the back of his truck, placing his daughters beside her. The truck rolled into the dark Colorado morning, carrying not only his victims but the remnants of the lies he had built with Nichol Kessinger. For nearly an hour, Chris drove toward an oil field owned by his company, Anadarko Petroleum, the same site where he and Nichole had once worked side by side. There, he buried Shannon in a shallow grave and placed his daughters in separate oil tanks. The decision was mechanical, methodical, and inhuman. Some believe Chris acted entirely alone. Others, including rumors whispered in letters he later received in prison, insist Nichole knew more than she admitted, that she helped him plan, that she encouraged the destruction of the family standing in the way of their fantasy. None of it was ever proven. But the suspicion never died. You're watching Sinister Tales. Before we continue, like, share, and subscribe, because the most shocking part of this story comes after the crime itself. The courtroom in Greeley, Colorado, was silent, the kind of silence that feels like it could break under its own weight. On November 19, 2018, Chris Watts shuffled into the room in his orange jumpsuit, wrists bound, head bowed. The man once known as a loving father now stood before a judge as one of the most despised figures in America. Every camera was trained on him. Every eye watched for a flicker of remorse. But his face remained still, drained of emotion, like a mask carved from stone. As the charges were read, first-degree murder, unlawful termination of pregnancy, tampering with a body, the details pierced the air like glass. Chris had already pleaded guilty to avoid the death penalty, a plea deal supported by Shanann's family, who couldn't bear the torture of a trial. Yet even in accepting guilt, he never truly explained why. Psychologists would later call it family annihilation driven by narcissism. Others called it evil. The prosecution called it methodical murder, premeditated, intentional, and irreversible. When the judge handed down 5 consecutive life sentences without the possibility of parole, the courtroom exhaled as if releasing weeks of suffocated rage. Shanann's parents spoke through tears, saying they forgave him not to ease his conscience but to free themselves from the weight of hate. Still, forgiveness did not erase the horror. As reporters swarmed outside, one question echoed through every headline: was Chris Watts truly alone in what he did? His phone records, his erased messages, and his connection to Nichol Kessinger still hovered like a dark cloud. Some investigators whispered that too many details didn't add up. Others said the evidence stopped short of proving her involvement. But for the public, the suspicion never died. You're watching Sinister Tales. If you believe every truth deserves a closer look, like, share, and subscribe, because the aftermath of this case revealed even darker questions than the crime itself. In the aftermath of the sentencing, the town of Frederick, Colorado, felt permanently scarred. Neighbors who once smiled at the Watts family from their driveways now drove by in silence, unable to look at the house where it all happened. The playgrounds were quieter, the streets emptier. Everyone had known them, the happy couple with 2 adorable little girls and another on the way. Now, that image had become a ghost, and the question that haunted the community was no longer why, but how. How could something so horrific grow behind a facade of normal life? For Shanann's parents, Frank and Sandra Rzusek, the pain was unending. They buried not just their daughter and grandchildren but the future that was stolen from them. Shanann's mother later said she replayed her daughter's last video over and over, her smiling face, her excitement about the baby, her trust in the man who would destroy her world. They turned their grief into quiet advocacy, speaking out against domestic violence and reminding others that emotional detachment and manipulation can be as lethal as physical abuse. The community held candlelight vigils for Shanann, Bella, Celeste, and baby Nico. Strangers cried for them as if they had known them personally. Online, her videos went viral, showing her warmth, her laughter, her belief in family, moments that made her loss feel painfully personal.
Hey, baby! Yes, your Paco? Do you want a brother or a sister?
Sister.
You want a little sister?
Yeah.
You want to be a big sister?
Yeah.
Yeah? Okay. Go, Cece. Go, Bella. Careful, Cece. You're going to get dizzy. You're going to get dizzy, Cece. You're going to get dizzy.
Blow on it, Cece. No, don't let her touch the plate. No, 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 no. Blow on it, Cece. I'll be low. Blow, Cece. Blow.
Yet even among the mourning, another name kept resurfacing, Nichol Kessinger. Her interviews, her phone searches, and her disappearance from public life became part of the obsession surrounding the case. Was she a naive lover caught in a web of deceit, or a silent accomplice who walked away untouched? The case had ended in court, but in the court of public opinion, it was far from over. You're watching Sinister Tales. If this story stays with you long after it ends, like, share, and subscribe, because every view helps us keep the memory of victims alive and the unanswered questions burning. Years later,